Hello, I will be looking at the Ford Pinto Fires case study today. Just a little background about the Ford Pinto Fires case study is Ford Motor Company wanted to produce an affordable small car. Usually they kind of dominated the mid-size to larger end vehicles. They tried competing with Japanese and German manufacturers, even though they already dominated those other industries. They designed the car starting in 1968 to be released in 1970, 1971. This was a big deal because usually cars took 3.5 years to kind of go through testing and manufacturing, and Ford did it in just two. The problem was their cars had an issue with the gas tank. When these cars were rear-ended, they tended to have a chance of exploding. Why this was an ethical issue? It was an ethical issue because Ford knew the dangers of manufacturing these cars, and they still went ahead and did it. Ford, since they knew the dangers, they went ahead and did testing to try and combat these, but they realized it would cost an extra $11 per car, and they chose not to fix it and pay that extra $11 because they were trying to keep their costs low. And then Ford didn't recall them when these cars did have serious problems until new regulations were put in place in like 1976, and they were taken to court. Once they had numerous accounts of bad publicity from the media, they finally decided to recall 1.5 million cars. Evidence in the case, they look at the test results. There's even a good YouTube video on how this car was rear-ended and they just went up in flames almost immediately. And since it was a test, Ford did have the knowledge and the results of the faulty vehicles. That was shown in the case that Ford did the research to see how much it would cost them in repairing and building a better fuel tank. They came to the conclusion that it would have been about an extra $11, and that $11 was estimated to save 180 lives. However, Ford believed customers value affordability over safety. It was reported multiple times in the case that they were really trying to keep their costs under $2,000 and under 2,000 pounds. That was a big deal for Ford, and they went ahead with saving the $11 while putting lives at risk. How this relates to the chapter: when looking at the manufacturing process, customers expect products that are safe and are of reasonable quality. Ford did not follow through with this. They produced something that was not safe and was not within reasonable quality. Integrity: maintaining concern for the greater good. This thought or idea is based on the foundation that people need to have integrity and do the right thing for a group of people, not just themselves. Ford acted very selfishly when they knowingly produced these unsafe vehicles and sold them at a reasonable price to manufacturers, even though they knew the extreme safety risks that went along with selling these cars. Industry-based issues talked about in chapter 4. Specifically, the fourth factor of industry-based issues. This is how industries can become so competitive that it drives low profit margins. Due to these low profit margins, Ford was trying to save as much money as they could, and that's why they ultimately decided not to go with the extra $11 to repair the fuel tank. I think that is strictly based on competition. They were just trying to compete in that same industry range as the Japanese and Germany manufactured cars, when Ford really was not capable of competing at their level. Some recommendations that I had for Ford is Ford should have stopped manufacturing these cars right away when they realized how dangerous they were. They should have chose to spend the $11 to make a more reliable product. I think that's kind of the no-brainer, and I believe if Ford could go back, they would have chose to do this as well. They should have recalled them sooner once they realized how many lives were lost. Maybe they thought, oh, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I mean, instantly they were having problems. They should have got those cars off the road almost immediately. Consequences. The consequences that had to go with this were steep. They had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees and fines. When estimated they lost 180 lives when Ford created this vehicle, they had to lay out what they estimated a human's life was worth in 1971. They estimated it to be about $200,725, which in today's money, that's over $1.5 million. And probably the worst consequence is 180 people died due to their decision to not spend $11. Henry Ford II, who was sitting president, had charges that were that he was facing up to 20-year sentences. However, I couldn't find that he served any time for this. Here are my sources. Thanks for listening.